locks get longer, he then not it on it. Brass radiate, you don't know. Pop the good music. Play them.
No cigarette smoking in my room. Yeah. I Stephen Marley. Bless FM radio, play good tune. La musa moro de la pigo. Tetesa manita wali. Inota toku, wenchi di kupuni. Di kututa futulu mawaku di kenyose. Afaga bevai, mahiru. Naba, mahiru naba. On the truth teller, the prophet Nebnabala Musa more than the bigger, the chosen one, the Messiah. Motobile bana bilege naba. Isina basa ile moge naba. Dikizi yomte defese. Dikizi yomte defese. Na merite pia no ifese. Na merite pia no ifese. Anya kizi yomte nyamfese. Dikizi yomte defese. Anya dile maheru shenye fese. Merite pia no inala fotela. Inana bao. Naba, mahiru naba. Mahiru naba. Prophet Nebnaba la Musa, more than a big. The dog on the truth teller. The prophet Nebnaba la Musa, more than a big. The chosen one, the Messiah. He is the chosen one and the Messiah. He's the light and the way. The wisdom of our days. The healer, the preacher, the truth teller. Bangatito Bununge, Missina Pasake, Ochobo Foster. The chosen one, the Messiah.
Welcome to the Wisdom of the Nile show. I'm Kasata with you this evening. We are here another evening sharing wisdom with you. Sharing with you wisdom of the ancestors. We have a wonderful show for you tonight, for we will be reasoning with the youths and we will be sharing the wisdom of the ancestors, because the youths are the future. Ujjayi and greetings. Welcome to the Wisdom of the Nile show. As I said, I'm Kasata Fakara, here with you, sharing the wisdom of the ancients. So before I go any further, I firstly would like to acknowledge the world of divine and our ancestors. Today, in fact, is an ancestral holy day, the day when we acknowledge and we will remember our ancestors, those who went before us and on whose shoulders we stand. We acknowledge our ancestors today.
The prophet the chosen one, the Messiah.
But as we acknowledge those who went before us, how will we prepare the way for those who are to come? The youths who will stand for tomorrow, will they still hold the teachings of the ancients? For humanity's destiny is in their hands. Yes, so this evening we will be speaking to those who are the future, and we will be looking inside the minds of the youths. Is there still a place for tradition? But before we go into that, we want to acknowledge the Earth Center and the fact that we had what we call an orientation just last week. So the week before we had graduation, and I know last week Kasata and the Hipsa had the Hatakata generation, who recently graduated out of the Per Ankh, that's from the Umtam school. They had done a year and a half in initiation, and we welcomed them into the, I don't want to use the word fraternity, but into the family. It was really a wonderful evening. And then last week we had orientation, where we communed with our community, those in our community, and the doors of initiation became open to those who want to step in to Per Ankh, the House of Life, to learn the wisdom that have been left by our ancestors for the last 2,000 years and more. Because actually the knowledge that the Dagomba people hold is over 40,000 years old. And we know that humanity has been on the planet for millions of years. And that our African culture, our culture, goes back hundreds of thousands of years. And when we look back to the earliest times, we see mankind wanting to emulate the world of the gods. Mankind wanting to raise his consciousness, raise his qualities. And within the cosmogony and the stories within the Tagomba traditions, it tells how humanity stood before the world of the gods as the world of the gods opened onto humanity. And humanity saw the excellence of the world of the gods. And when the world of the gods asked humanity, what is your agenda? What do you want? Their response was, we want to be like you. You see, when those who created creation opens their world before you, what else greater can there be? And so humanity made, our ancestors made a vow that we would try to walk the road of the divine. And on that day, the day of Tahuti, what we call the code of human behavior, the 77 laws, commandments, whatever you choose to call it, was given unto our ancestors. And this was the code of behavior, the code of human behavior by which our ancestors vowed to live by. It was a code that allowed humanity to know right from wrong. Through many religions, we have come to know other forms of what we call commandments or codes of behaviors. Many people know of the 42 laws of Ma'at. And the 42 laws of Ma'at, for those who don't know, were actually the things that the person who had transitioned had managed to keep in their lifetime. So in ancient Kemet, before you had the 77, and when you transitioned, you would put on your tomb or where you were laid to rest the things that you have managed to keep. So I have not lied, I have not committed adultery, I have not. And these were the things that the person or the initiate, those who were trying to walk the road of the divine, these were the things that they would say that they had managed to keep in this lifetime. And so when Egyptologists found the 42 laws of Ma'at, they saw that as these were simply all there was to abide by. But those 42 laws were simply the laws that that particular person had managed to keep. There was still more that needed to be kept. And so through the cycle of reincarnation and being reborn, the person, the soul would be able to come back, or the spirit would be able to come back, the ka would be able to come back and continue the journey towards the world of the divine. In Christianity, they speak about the 10 commandments. They speak about the 10 commandments. And the 10 commandments were those which were given by the Christians, and these were the things that they would live by. Now, remember that the 10 Commandments that was given was actually given by someone called Moses. And it is imperative to remember that Moses had done his studies in Kemet, or what is known as Egypt today. And so Moses was exposed to these laws before the Hebrews or the Israelites left Egypt. He was exposed to what it meant to live by a certain standard to raise your quality. And so within Christian teachings, they say he went on a mountain, he got the 10 Commandments and he delivered them to the people. But Moses had already grown up in the Pharaoh's palace. He was already an adept at what they will call magic, because he learned that within Kemet, within the king's palace. So our ancestors understood that for the human being to reach any kind of standard, it had to be set by the divine world. During the times that the Dagomba and other temples, so the Dagomba have many temples, and there are many people that trace their lineage back to the Nile Valley religion. And the Nile Valley region in Kemet, the Nile Valley region, is a place where the world first came, and it's known in these times where the world came to learn, where the world came to feed both spiritually and physically. So even in the Bible they talk about Joseph who goes into Egypt because there is famine everywhere else, but in Egypt there is much grain, because the Nile Valley or the Happy River would overflow, and at certain times they kept storage of food. So Kemet, for many reasons, was the place where everyone would go to. Maybe like your modern universities like Oxford or Cambridge or Harvard. It was the place where people would go to. And they can trace their history and tell you when Greeks, the Romans, came into Kemet, and when their ancestors were given the mandate to take the knowledge out of Kemet and to bring it out into the West, across the Sahara, into the places we know as West Africa today. While that was taking place, while we had tribes, while we had groups of people keeping the secret initiations in the bush, far away from what is now known as civilization, the rest of Africa was encountering Arab onslaught, and then in the 14 and 1500s, European onslaught. And at that time was when Europeans came in, and the whole slave trade between Europe and Africa began to take place. Now, remember, prior to this, there had been hundreds and thousands of years of black rule. We're going to bring this into modern times. So we've gone through slavery. We've gone through a time of first of all, black independence, black knowledge, black culture ruling the world. We go through a time with the Greco and the Romans. We go through a time with the Middle East, the Arab world, and then we come into the times where back in the times of European, but this time not the Greek, not the Romans, but now we're talking about France, Portugal, Britain, Spain, Belgium, where the modern Europeans come onto the world stage and now become world powers, because we understand that everything goes through a cycle. During the 1400s and the 1500s, what we know as chattel slavery began, right up until 1800s. So there was at least 400 years of colonialism. Now, during that time, Africans were under the control and under the rule of European powers. We come into the 1800s, 1900s, and we had the time where slavery is now abolished. But countries like most of Africa, like the Caribbean, are under colonial rule. By the early 1900s, we have the First World War. And in the First World War, Africans were now fighting each other on European, so whether it was the French and the British fighting each other, whether it was the Belgians, the Dutch, the Germans, they now had black people fighting on their behalf in the world wars. By the 1920s, black people in America and in the Caribbean are still under white domination. Now, we want to bring the history up to modern times, but I think it's important that we look at the journey. So, in times like the 1920s, you had, we were just in the 1990s, in the Americas, you had the Red Summer, where there were riots. Whites were rioting against blacks. And that was over the whole summer. This was in places like Georgia, Tennessee, South Carolina, Connecticut, Philadelphia. Through the whole summer in the early 1990s, we had these summers. We had these race riots, and we had riots happening in the 1930s, 1940s. These were whites against black people. Now, at that time, places like the Caribbean and Africa were still under colonialism. Americans, the American blacks, were still under the Jim Crow. They were still under colonialism, but in a different form. Now, by the 40s, 50s and 60s, you began to enter into the time when black people in America had begun to seek their independence. Black people in America were now looking at protest songs. They were now emerging and seeking to have equal rights. They, of course, you had people like Martin Luther King at the forefront, but you then had the music, and one of the first social commentaries that gained public or wide public acceptance, and really this was one of the first songs that got African music being listened to on a political level, was this woman. And I want to start here with this woman, because she began to speak out against what African Americans were facing at this time. Our sister Billie Holiday.
Southern trees bear strange fruit, blood on the leaves and blood at the root, black bodies swinging in the southern breeze, strange fruit hanging from the poplar trees. Pastoral scene of the gallant South, the bulging eyes and the twisted mouth, scent of magnolia, sweet and fresh. Then the sudden smell of burning flesh. Here's a fruit for the crows to pluck, for the rain to gather, for the wind to suck, for the sun to rot, for the tree to drop. Here's a strange and bitter
Yes, our sister Billie Holiday. Social commentary at the time. Our people were being hung from trees. Ku Klux Klan, they were murdering, intimidating our people in the Americas. While in places like the Caribbean, you began to have political parties. In places like Jamaica, you had JLP and PNP coming up. After we had the so-called Jamaica became independent. And at that time we had music like the ska, and after the ska we had rock steady. At the time, the ska was the music that was hopeful for people in the Caribbean. It was the music that people were saying, yes, now we're going to be able to live the lives that we want to live. Yes, yeah, we're gonna be able to live the life that we want to live. Just having a little technical thing, and so I'm just trying to change over mics. That they saw a future for themselves. They thought now they were independent. They believed they were truly independent. But as the years went by, they realized it wasn't quite as they thought it would be. Because although the colonial name was no longer there and they were so-called independent, the structure was still in place. And so the music moved to things like rocksteady. And after rocksteady came reggae. Now, what music does is it is the mouthpiece for what is happening in society. And with rocksteady then came reggae. And with that music there was a lot more social commentary. Our people were beginning to find a voice for themselves, a voice for the voiceless. They were able to express themselves in a way where they had never been able to express themselves to the public before. Now, we have to understand that while this is going on within the black community is under a greater structure. And what is happening in the white community at the same time is that you have the youth revolution, where you had people like Marlon Brando, and there's one called James Dean, and these were the youths that were now Hollywood was putting out there as rebellious. I think it wasn't Rebel Without a Cause. I think it was that one of the biggest films that came out. And this is where the youth culture in the mainstream European, and when we're saying European, I'm speaking more American, and it was influencing Britain. The center stage, youths now took the center stage with this rebellious spirit. And you know, you had people out on the motorbikes, you had the Marlon Brandos on the motorbike, you know, that was showing social dissent in the European context. You had rock and roll now, Elvis Presley coming in, and to the white society this was like rebellion. So there was these two levels going on, one within the black community, which was more happening underneath, because black music had not really found mainstream acceptance, and it had found mainstream acceptance but only to the popular songs which they would accept. Now, as we go through, you find that, so we go back to places like Jamaica, where you had the Rude Boys, and then in the UK, when Caribbean people were now coming over into the UK on what we call the Windrush. And Windrush were the ships that African Caribbean people were coming over into the UK. Now you began to get a mixing of the cultures. Before you had that, you had the riots. So you had more. So when you talk about you had the riots in Americas in the 1920s, now you had black people coming to the UK, and there were riots on the streets between our parents and what you call the mods and the Teds here on the streets. So there was a lot of social unrest happening. But what happened was you also began to have the sound systems and the reggae. And so you had the Skins and the mods who actually started to get into reggae. So hence you had things like the Specials and Madness. These were a type of two-tone music that was coming out through black and white culture intermixing. You had in the 60s coming up, you had Motown, you had all of that music coming up. Okay, as we come further, we come to the R&B. And you move further, and then you come into things like hip-hop. In the States, in the Caribbean, especially in Jamaica, you had things like, you know, the slackness music happening. Now, music reflects what's going on in the society. If we move into modern day, we now see the type of impact that music has on the youths, but it doesn't go one way, because the music that is being played now is actually a reflection of the lives that the youths have been living. So when we talk about in the UK, we were having riots on the streets. We wanted social equality because these were the things we were fighting for. We had blacks in America fighting for their civil rights. But at the same time, the structure that was over black people were still responsible for the education that our children were having. They are still responsible, be it more clandestine, for the drugs that began to filter into our communities. They were responsible for the marketing, for the media, for what was seen on the media, what is seen on the media. And so our youths began to absorb what was going on. At the same time, we had our sisters who now were beginning to become more independent. And as that independence began to grow, we had a breakdown in the black family. So we were not having so much mother and father, which when our parents left the Caribbean, most families had mother and father. Even if it meant the man took on the woman with 2 or 3 children, that was actually quite normal in our parents' days. By the time we get in the last 20, 30 years, what happens is single parent mothers, single parent families become more prevalent. Why does all that become important? Because now we have youths, now we have youths that no longer have the father figure that we so need as a human beings. We no longer have the father figure constantly in the home. In fact, no longer do we have the father figure constantly in the home. The mother now is out working. So now there is no one in the home to guide the children. On a whole, this is not every family, but this is what we have seen here in the UK over the last 20, 30 years. And what has taken the place of the black family is the social media, is the TV, and is the gangs. We'll be back with you shortly. We're going to play some conscious music from our brother Nas and Damian Marley. Because you see, the youths are our future. And we want to see what they see. We want to see into the minds of the youths of today. So shortly we're going to be bringing up some youths who are in the studio with us to just share some of their interactions, some of their knowledge, some of what's been happening to them here today. And we want to know, is there a place for the traditions in the lives of our youths today?
Hey yo, D, let's go all the way in on this one. Some of the smartest dummies can't read the language of Egyptian mummies, and a flag over moon, and can't find food for the starving tummies. Pay no mind to the youths, cause it's not like the future depends on it. We'll save the animals in the zoo, cause the chimpanzee, them a make big money. This is how the media villages, on TV the picture is savages and villages, and the scientists still can't explain the pyramids. Evangelists making a living on the videos of ribs of the little kids, stereotyping the image of the images, and this is what the image is. You buy a car, key points, and all of a sudden you are say Indiana Jones, and I take out the gold and take out the scrolls and even the bird bones. So Some of the worst paparazzi I've ever seen and ever known. Put the words on this place so the world can see, and that's all that will ever show. So the ones in the west will never move east and feel like a dear town. Get tricked by the beast, but the way them a go flee when the monster is fully grown. Solomonic lineage where them still can defeat and them could never clown. A spiritual DNA that prints in my soul and I will forever own, Lord.
Yeah, Sabali, that's patience. That's what the old folks told me. Can you get with that? Discovering a world before this world, a world buried in time, uncovered with rhymes. It gets no realer.
We born not knowing, are we born knowing all? We growing wiser, are we just growing tall? Can you read thoughts? Can you read palms? Can you predict the future? Can you see storms coming? The earth was flat, if you went too far you would fall off. Now the earth is round, if the shape change again everybody would have started laugh. The average man can't prove up most of the things that he chooses to speak of, and still run research and find out the root of the truth that you seek of. Scholars teach in universities and claim that they're smart and cunning. Tell them find a cure when we sneeze, and that's when their nose start running. And the rich get stitched up when we get caught. Wanna heal them broken bones in the bush with the wet mud. Can you read signs? Can you read stars? Can you make peace? Can you fight war? Can you milk cows even though you drive cars? Can you survive against all odds now?
It's crazy. When you feed people the truth, you don't know how they gonna react. You're scared of wrongdoers, people that's just ignorant and scared of the truth. We patient for now. Who wrote the Bible? Who wrote the Quran? And was it a lightning storm that gave birth to the earth and then dinosaurs were born? Who made up words? Who made up numbers? And what kind of spell is mankind under? Everything on the planet we preserve and can it. Microwave it and try it, no matter what, we'll survive it. What's you? What's man? What's human? Anything along the land we consuming, eating, deleting, ruin. Trying to get paper, gotta have land, gotta have acres, so I can sit back like Jack Nicholson, watch niggas play the game like the Lakers. In a world full of 52 fakers, gypsies, seances, mystical prayers. You superstitious, throw soul over your shoulders, make a wish for the day, cuz like somebody got a doll of me, sticking needles in my artery, but I can't feel it. Sometimes it's like part of me, but I got a real big spirit, I'm fearless. Don't you try to grab hold of my soul. It's like a military soldier since 7 years old. I held real dead bodies in my arms, felt their body turn cold. Oh, why we born in the first place if this is how we gotta go? Damn. To all the wisdom and knowledge seekers of the world, Sabali, patience.
Yes, that's our young, positive, conscious brother Nas and Damian Marley quoting the traditions. Normally, actually, I don't even know all the words that they're saying, but I know it's a traditional African, and they're talking about patience. But you know, these brothers, unfortunately, are exceptions, because the music now, let's continue with where we are today. We've gone from hip-hop to grime to what is happening now here in the UK is this drill music. And what the drill speaks about is basically death and destruction. And on the streets of London here, in the UK, it has not been pretty. For the last few years, what we see on the streets is our youths attacking their one another. So we spoke about what was happening on the streets before, where these were riots against black people. But now we move through into this time, and the fighting on the streets that are happening within our communities are no longer us against an oppressor, but us against ourselves. But that's one side of the equation, because now we've entered a time that's unprecedented, especially for the youths and especially for our young boys, but not just our young boys, our young girls too. Because now we've entered into a world where the worldview is anything goes. And for those of us who live by the tradition and try to pass down morals, try to pass down principles and traditions that are age old and that have stood the test of time, it is a worldview that is not the common worldview. If we look at things like gender and sexuality, now where we would have seen male and female, and it was clear, that's the principles that are in nature, we see that throughout time. Our youths are now exposed within the education system to things like cis. Now, these are the different terminologies for sexuality that are now seen as normal for our children. Cis. So cis is short for cisgender, which refers to people whose gender identity matches the sex they are assigned at birth. So if you're born with a penis and you feel and consider yourself to be a male, you'd be called a cisgender male. So that says to me, you're a man. You've been born a man and you're a man. But the name for it now is cisgender. This is what our youths are coming into. Then they've got something like cishet. Cishet is short for cisgender heterosexual, or someone who is both cis and straight. Okay. Then we have transgender, which refers to someone whose gender does not align with the sex they were assigned at birth. Trans is not aligned with what was determined at birth. Okay. Then we have gender queer. Now, our children have to get to understand all of this because this is what is around them at the moment. A gender queer person may identify as neither gender. Okay. Let me just say that again. A gender queer person may identify as neither gender. Okay. So they're not male and they're not female. It hasn't said what the other aspect is, but they're not male and they're not female. Okay. Gender fluid, someone whose gender fluid feels that their gender is fluid and can change over time. Okay. Non-binary, all of these are terms for genders. Non-binary is an umbrella term for people whose gender is not just male or female. Okay. There are actually more intersex orientation. Okay. Now, as the children grow up, this is what they are exposed to. This is seen as the norm. And there is a level of acceptance that they have been schooled. So now our children have interfighting on the streets in what they call gangs. Then they are also faced with drugs. They are faced with music like drill that is not about social commentary like we heard our sister Billie Holiday giving, but actually is about who they're going to kill next, what drugs they're going to do, who's going to get stabbed, who's going to get shanked, and this becomes normalized. Now, this is the world that our children are growing up in. I want to welcome our young initiate, Menshib, to the show. We are going to see into the minds of the youth. Menshib, welcome to the Wisdom of the Nile show. Now, my question for you, and from now on, I'm going to leave the show mainly to the youths because we want to see how you are interacting and dealing and processing what is going on in the world, as well as the traditions that we bring. So my first question to you is, Menshib, so you've heard a bit about what would have been saying in terms of with the tradition. So you came up in the initiation, you have a Rastafari background, and so you had one set of principles being given to you at home, but through the TV and then through outside of the home, you are then exposed to another, what they say is normality. How do you reconcile those two? How do you even view the world? How do you deal with this kind of exposure? How do you step forward in the world?
Alright, so I believe that the world, the universe is like a boomerang. So whether you're part of the universe is where you're going to get back. And what I do to balance the two lives is that you have to find a balance. So you have to stay in between the both worlds. So what I do is I stay on social media because social media is one way of you getting trapped into their agendas. So what I do is come off of social media because that's one thing. But also what I see why people get more into the gangs and the violence is that it's glorified and it seems cool, and things that you're meant to do isn't glorified as much. So that's the reason why people go more into that route rather than taking the right route.
So I'd just like you to just say that again, because I think now we've got your mic where it should be. I think we didn't have your mic up to where it should be. So hopefully. So one of the things you first said in your way of dealing with it is that you actually have to come off social media, which actually is something that most youths would find very challenging to do. So you come off social media. Okay. What's the reason why you come off social media at times?
Well, I'm not saying coming off social media is the easiest thing to do because it's one of the hardest. Because if this was me 6 months ago, that would be impossible because we all know about Snapchat and all that. But the task is to just come off for at least a day. And once you come off, you need to build into a practice, and then you can be able to come off for like 3 weeks and feel no way.
So what made you come off social media?
What made me come off social media? Because I found out that I used it way too much and I wasn't productive. So all I would do is come home and be on my phone all the time. And I noticed that being on social media gives you temporary pleasure, but it doesn't help you in the long term. So it will help you interact with people, but the interactions and stuff is low level interactions. It won't build anything good. So you find out that it's not worth it, and it won't make you productive. So one way to increase productivity is just to come on social media completely.
Okay, so I think we're having a technical. We're not hearing you so clear. So I'm going to ask you to share this mic with me. Okay, so what I would like you to say again, just so that the listeners can hear you more clearly, I want you to go back over the fact that social media and why you're not using social media. Oh, actually, we've got another mic here. Let's see if we can get you on this one. Okay, all right, so go ahead.
All right, so what was the question?
Yeah, so again, because we want to make sure that the listeners are hearing. So again, if you tell us a bit more about social media as to why you decided that you needed to come off social media.
I decided to come off social media because I believe that social media is a trap. I believe social media is a trap, as in it gives you temporary pleasure and it doesn't help you in the long run. and it's very easy to get distracted because they have thousands of things, and they have social media. They have social media, different apps, different things to distract you. So the best way to find peace within yourself is to come off social media.
Okay, we are having some technical issues in the studio. So, Menshib, we are going to come back to you in just a moment. Let's just hear some more of Nas and Damon. Why? Because we need to hear the youths today. So let me just make sure we get you loud and clear, my brother.
Here we are. Here we are. Right here is for the people.
The youths are the future. We need to make sure that they are carrying the traditions forward.
This one.
Some of the smartest dummies can't read the language of Egyptian mummies on a flag or a moon, and can't find food for the starving tummies. Pay no mind to the youths, cause it's not like the future depends on it. We'll save the animals in the zoo, cause the chimpanzee them a make big money. This is how the media villages on TV, the picture is savages and villages, and the scientists still can't explain the pyramids. Evangelists making a living on the videos of ribs of the little kids, stereotyping the image of the images, and this is what the image is. You buy a car, key pants, and all of a sudden you are say Indiana Jones, and I take out the gold and take out the scrolls and even the bird bones. Some of the worst paparazzis I've ever seen and ever known, with the worst on this place of the world can see, and that's all I will ever show. So the ones in the west will never move east and feel like it'll be a town. Get tricked by the beast, but the way them a go flee when the monster is fully grown. Solomonic lineage where them still can't defeat and them coulda never clown. A spiritual DNA that prints in my soul and I will forever own, Lord.
Yeah. Sabali, that's patience. That's what the old folks told me. Can you get with that? Discovering the world before this world, a world buried in time, uncovered with rhymes. It gets no realer.
We born unknowing, are we born knowing all? We growing wiser, are we just growing tall? Can you read thoughts? Can you read palms? Can you predict the future? Can you see storms coming? The earth was flat, if you went too far you would fall off. Now the earth is round, if the shape change again everybody would have stopped laugh. The average man can't prove up most of the things that he chooses to speak of, and still run research and find out the root of the truth that you seek of. Scholars teach in universities and claim that they're smart and cunning. Tell them find a cure when we sneeze, and that's when their nose start running and the rich get stitched up.
Okay, let's see if we can get our youths back up. Okay, Menshib, are you there with us?
Yeah, I'm here.
Right, so are we hearing you, Menshib? Are we hearing you?
Yeah.
Well, I know that you've been speaking for and sharing some of your experience, but we want to make sure that we're getting you loud and clear. So we need to get this the sound.
Go on.
We need to get Menshib's mic so that we can definitely hear him, and we have our brother Shay in the studio, and we want to make so that we can hear our brother Shay.
Hello. You need to speak into the mic.
Oh, hello.
Yeah, I think we're hearing our brother Shay loud and clear. Are we hearing our brother Menshib loud and clear?
Hello.
Okay. So, are we hearing you? Okay, I think we've got some of what we wanted, and we've got you We've got you loud and clear. Okay, so my question, and I'm going to ask it again because we've got the youths, and with all this technical stuff, that's fine, it can happen, but we're going to hear from you guys tonight because, like we said, you are going to be the future tomorrow. You're a young initiate. When us, the older generation, go, we need to make sure that everything is okay in your hands. Now, you shared with us just now that, and it's the third time I'm saying it, but we want to make sure we say this because many children do find it very difficult to come off of social media. But one of the things that I wanted to ask as well, because I know that it's very prevalent here in the UK, and I'm also going to put this to our brother Shay. The drill music, and I see that in the UK here a lot, the drill music is being listened to a lot of young black children. The little I've heard, it's not a positive influence on them. Give me your side of that whole scene that's happening out there, and also how you see it and affecting the youth, or maybe you see as a way that the youths are releasing themselves in a positive way. I don't know. Yeah, so I would like, Shay, would you like to share some of your thoughts with us on
So I believe that it can be a form of like a way to express yourself. So like personally, so if you come up from a bad background or something like that, and you need to express yourself, like you can listen to a form of music that it's not good, but it's a way to express yourself. So like especially because the people that are actually rapping are black themselves, and that's why a lot of black young people are listening to it, because they feel they can connect more. So they're not going to listen to a white person singing because they're not white. So it's sad, but a lot of black people aren't using that platform productively to produce music that's actually positive. So all we are surrounded by is negative music. So
does the drill actually promote any kind of positive, or is it usually mostly negative?
Sometimes it does. You do get like Akala as a rapper that will promote.
Akala, yeah. Does he do drill?
No, he doesn't.
No,
not really. No,
but he does do conscious.
Yeah, he does. Yeah.
Okay, so just as I was saying to Menshib just now, the youths are having to now deal with things like sexuality and gender in a way that we as adults have never had to deal with. We were clear, a man is a man and a woman is woman, and it's not that there were not people who were homosexual or lesbian. That actually did exist as well. It was something that existed. It certainly wasn't so mainstream, and we certainly didn't have all of these different labels now, where now, even though you're born with female genitals and male genitals, you're not male and you're female. For me, it's confusion. I don't know what that must be for the children. And then on the other side of it, like I said, you have those like myself, like your mother, who what they're teaching in the home is ancient traditions that are steeped in African traditions, in deities, in gods, in integrity, in morals, in raising yourself, and in many ways against what is happening in the world today. How do you see the traditions moving forward in a modern world in light of what is actually happening in the world today?
So I feel like what you're teaching us is very like useful, and it's like almost a deterrent away from society now, and how they're trying to promote this thing about gay people, lesbians and stuff like that. So it's really like good and useful for the young generation.
Okay, so what you're saying is that it's important to have a voice that speaks for heterosexual, because that's the bracket now that, heterosexual is what we would be. So what you're saying is it's important that heterosexual people who are heterosexual actually speak out, just like gay people are, lesbian people are, transgender. I think that's very important for us as parents to understand as well, because the climate that is out there at the moment would almost want people to fear speaking in favor of their way of seeing the world. Menshib, what's your thoughts on that? Thank you, Shay. We're going to hear a lot more from you.
I feel like this whole agenda as in gay and lesbian it's fine for us to be aware of it, but then it's like it's being enforced on us, like it's being forced. And what I'm hearing is that they're sending drag queens to like primary school and teaching them about the ways from young, and I don't think that should be done. Like even today I was on the bus and it was weird because I was talking to my friend. We were talking about something to do with topic of being gay, because I heard that it was on social media that on how June's Gay Pride Month, they're saying that on all the buses they're gonna put the flags. So I was just saying to my friend that if they do that, I'll happily walk to school. And then as soon as I said that, we were in Wood Green, and I saw on the road on a big like a two-way road, there was a big gay flag on the road. So I was thinking like it's too enforced, like they're forcing it down, and it shouldn't be. It isn't good for drag queens and stuff to be teaching young kids how to like about that. And even I was in school today and I was watching a YouTube video, and it was a spiritual thing, and the YouTuber was talking about there's a basketball player called Dwayne Wade, how his son now daughters, they're only 12. And as soon as he said that, I stopped it and I went on the news. I wanted to see it myself because I'm into basketball. So I typed it in, and the son's only 12, and she changed her gender. So her name was like Zion, and now it's Zaya or something like that, and he changed her gender. And Dwayne Wade was writing saying how like he feels responsible and he's happy that she can do what she wants now, and it's weird, but I feel like that's the system and the government using celebrities, because that's what they need. They need celebrities to promote this stuff, because they need celebrities to promote it, because then we look up to the celebrities, and then now we're going to think, oh, if they do it, it's cool, like it's all right. And then it's like the subconscious thing in the man, and then that's how they like enforce their agenda.
Now, thank you. And it's really good hearing the clarity from the youths, because it is important for us as adults to see where next to help to guide the youths. Now, it's more or less been normalized, this way of being as normal, more or less been normalized. And one of the fears is that what's going to happen to the next generation, to your children, because if it's normal now, I think I saw a quote today. It said something like, when I came to America, homosexuality was legal. Now it's okay. Now it's legal, and I think I better leave before it becomes mandatory. But I mean, the way it's moving. We have another young brother in the studio, Corey. I would just like to get because just to say that our guests in the studio today are 15, 16, and 17. And our brother Corey.
Hello.
Greetings. You are, or Ujayi is what we would say. You are, your age is?
I'm Corey. My age is 25.
25.
Yes.
So you're a little bit older, but you're still very much in the youth culture. What's your perspective? And you'll have to forgive me if my back's turned to you, because I'm like trying to see everybody at the same time, okay? But what's your perspective on what's happening in terms of black youths in through the music, through this whole agenda around sexuality, even the whole thing about God and so forth. God was taken out of the schools many years ago. There's no more God in schools. So even concept of a divine one. That's been taken out of the picture. What's your take on this?
My take is a lot of young youths are influenced by a lot of drugs and alcohol. So growing up, seeing that around, friends and their background, it's a lot, And there's a lot of young youths that abuse the drug and alcohols, and obviously have to be in care or in other situations. Now, the circumstances that we're going through today is that you have to look out for the young ones. I look out for the young ones and try and teach them better things in life. Give them a little lecture, but make sure it's productive.
Okay, so if you're a youth yourself, and you see the kind of thing that's happening around you, what are you? Because we're pretty clear in the traditions. Yes. We're pretty clear about what is expected of the youth. So within the traditions, for example, youths, you and these other two would have gone through what we call initiation, and it is within this initiation that the young boys and the girls will be schooled in what it means to be a man, what roles you must play for when you grow older, and where you fit in the society, and not just in the society, where you fit in nature. The young girl, what it means to be a woman, how she fits within society, her value as a woman, and then how you fit within nature. Now, in modern society, what young people are exposed to is consumerism, meaning if you don't have the latest Nike, if you don't have the latest, clothes, if you're not playing the latest music, if you're not up to the trend which is set by somebody else's agenda, then you're not really in the loop. And most children want to be like their peers. So I'm asking you, when you are saying to the children, and Shay, I would like to hear your perspective, and also Menshib, what are you sharing with these young people to help to guide them in it? What are we talking about?
You're showing the good presence of good well-being, and having self-control, and to pursue happiness and to pursue their goals, and it's all in one. That's the main thing, to make sure that they get like a set, like, not rules, but like something to help them, like a format, and the right guidance that will take them forward in life. Yeah. Okay,
thank you, and that is important. What really we're talking about is what the right guidance is. What is it that these children should be doing? Shay, I think you wanted to share something with us.
Yeah, so I feel like in society now...
Thank you, Corey.
I feel like everything is a competition between the young youth, and it's like, like you have to keep up with the appearance and stuff like that, otherwise you're not considered as, being cool, or you don't fit in with the people you're surrounded by. And so that's why I think a lot of people become more self-conscious about their appearance and stuff, and they're always trying to keep up with the trend and stuff like that. Every week there's a new tracksuit, new shoes, and
exactly, and we poor parents, they want to put pressure on us to try and find them. And if it's not us, then what happens is they find other means, because they feel they have to. Look, so they find other means to go out there and find the money to get these things that you're talking about. Yes, my brother.
Oh yeah, and also I feel like mainly in the black community and with the young youth, they kind of scorn upon each other. So they don't help each other up. They just they look down upon each other. So that contributes in the way that they're always in competition and stuff like that. So that's why I feel like there's a segregation between the black community due to competition.
So what we're saying then, is that what is important to them is not necessarily who they are, and the value they have in themselves, but it's simply a piece of material on the
materialistic.
outside.
Yeah.
Now, how can that benefit any human being? How does that benefit? You know, it means that inside our youths, there's something missing.
Yeah.
There's something missing. We have our brother Shemzu on the line, and I'd like to see if we can get him up. Ujayi Shemzu. Shemsheru. Ujayi? Alright, let's see. Let me see if I can. Just give me a moment. Is that our brother Shemsheru? Are you there? Okay, I don't think I'm hearing you on this line. Just give me a moment. Greetings, Shemsheru.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I just think we need to turn the volume up a bit because we want to hear you. Ujayi?
Ujayi.
Yeah, one moment. We're just trying to get. Yeah. Yes, my brother? Are you there?
Yes. Yes, I'm here. Can y'all hear me?
No, we're not hearing you very loud in the studio at all. Just making sure we can. Can you speak again?
Yeah. Can y'all hear me yet?
Yeah, we're hearing you better now. That's good. And we are gonna get our sister in on the line as well. Ujayi Shemsheru, I hope you've been able to hear a bit of what's happening in the studio. What we're trying to do here is to get inside, or to understand the minds of the youths, because
Hello?
the youths are the ones we're here. I think there was a little reconnection issue there, but can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah, there was a reconnection issue.
That's right. And there is a short delay, so I hope the listeners can bear with us.
Yeah.
Shemsheru, we have some youths here from the UK in the studio. One is an initiate, one is the son of an initiate and the nephew of an initiate. So they've been exposed to the traditions, but of course they're exposed to the popular culture that you yourself are exposed to there in the States. Could you tell us where in the States you are and how old you are, my brother? Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I can hear you fine now.
Right. So what I'm asking is, first of all, could you just tell us your age and where you're calling from?
Yeah. I just turned 27 yesterday, and I'm from Baltimore.
Baltimore, did you say?
Yeah, Baltimore.
Okay. So what I was saying is we have some youths in the studio here, obviously from the UK, and they were sharing some of their thoughts on the world that they are exposed to, and also the impact of tradition and its role in their life. And I know you are currently an initiate, going through initiation at the moment. Could you share some of your perspective as a young man, both of them within the States, with us, please?
Um, Yeah, well, same thing. I mean, we have, youth that are distracted by the popular culture, by the things that we see on TV, the things that um, media flashes, the fancy material objects. We have a lot of people that are searching for themselves, though, in a lot of different avenues of, I guess, information. We're in an information highway or information war, so that's pretty much what's happening here. I mean, it's not like blatant all the time. From my perspective, it's not like blatant, but I mean, it is just what the most people are just interested in. It's like connecting back to like that spiritual path isn't always like about one thing or the most accepted thing or the popular thing. Like even that is still looked at as, oh, that's kind of weird. But yeah, that's pretty much what's happening around here, from my perspective at least. Right. Well, just like an example, I used this a story of Heru for one of the kids on my bus, and he was having a very hard time with other students, and he wasn't really allowing anybody to talk to him about anything, and he was just having a very troubled day. And I gave an example about, well, first I told him about Heru because he didn't know who he was. And then I gave him a little story about him. So I think the traditions plays a role in our identity and how we can see ourselves as people, because that's something that's not allowed for us to have here. Like we're always searching in religions, and different philosophies. We're always searching for something, but that tradition, aspect isn't something that's talked about here. So strength for us to have, especially for youth, because it gives us a good direction of where we're going and where we came from. And that's very important, especially in this day and age where we have, all these different bombardments of religions, of methods of studies, and just so on and so forth like that. So I think it just gives us a lot of guidance, a big aspect that can guide us along our journey on this earth that's missing.
Into this world, and what Horus must do, and basically he has to overcome his uncle, the one who kills his father. So the uncle who kills his father is named Set, and this is where the name Satan comes from. So Horus has to overcome Satan, basically, to really stand up in this day and reclaim his father's kingdom, which is the kingdom of righteousness. And so this is still the battle that our youths are having to face today, but it's told in a very ancient story. But the battles that our children are fighting are the same ones that Heru was fighting, and it is a fight against what you call probably good and evil. Is that fight that is happening here now, especially what is happening with our youths on the streets. Shems Heru, I want to see if I can bring in a sister into this conversation show. I'm just going to just say hold a moment and let's see if we can bring in our sister Sanchea. Senchea. Oh wow, you sound loud and clear, my sister. Senchea. Ujjayi. Okay, it's really good to speak with you this evening. Where are you calling from, Senchea?
So I'm calling from New Jersey in the US.
Okay, and you are also an initiate, yes?
Yes.
Okay, and how old are you, Senchea? Okay, how old are you, Senchea?
I'm 23.
Okay, have you had a chance to listen to what's happening in the studio? Because it's like a pot and we're mixing something, so we're putting all the ingredients in together so that we can come out with the right outcome by the end of the show. So you have now entered into the mix, Senchea. Have you heard some of what's been going on in the studio this evening?
Yes, I've been listening.
Okay, what would you like to share?
So yeah, I think that the topics that we're talking about have been very relevant. I know from my experience right now doing initiation, it's been incredible to have this as a resource and kind of build my foundation off of the traditions and something that I really think that now I'm going back to, because my background is that I was born in India, and my family comes from India, and we moved to the US when I was 5. So my whole life has been sort of that kind of struggle, I guess you could say, between, staying true to my roots and where I come from, but then also growing up in this country and this society where you're sort of presented with a lot of different values. So for me growing up, my family very much kind of instilled the importance of having our traditions and our values and, maintaining the language, things like that. But definitely growing up, I faced a lot of, conflicting messages when I was in school, and just, in general, like it wasn't cool. It wasn't like very accepted to be so proud of like where you come from. In order to really assimilate, you had to sort of adopt like, even just simple things from the way that you dress to really kind of like the way you function, the food you eat. I've had a lot of experiences growing up where, from coming from the outside, it was like I was being sent messages that where I come from or me having that be part of me made me somehow like less than or couldn't really fit in. So, it's really the strength of my parents and my grandparents and the way that they made me proud of where I come from that kept me sort of grounded in a way. But at the same time, growing up here, you really do think some of the way that some of the things are sold, you really do start to waver a little bit. So I think I was definitely kind of experiencing that by the time that I'd been in college and, really showered with a whole different value system. And that was the sort of point in my life where I started to have a lot of realizations, started to question a lot about what am I really looking for? Is this path like getting me closer to where I wanted? And I realized that what I really needed was a teacher, that I couldn't just take myself forward on my own and based on what my own ideas of reality in my life were. So that's kind of the point where I found initiation and the Earth Center, and that, now going through initiation, I really see the importance of learning the traditions, learning and staying close to where you come from, because you can't really move forward without understanding what your history is. And it's bringing me even closer to where I come from and the traditions of my family, and really driving me to learn more and embrace it so that I can also one day, pass it on and make sure that stability and that guidance that all of this model brings is something that, I can also hold for myself and be able to pass on.
So we have our brother Shemzu on the line. We have Corey, we have Menshib, and we have Shay. So as youths, if there is anything that you want to say, please feel free to engage in the conversation. So Shemzu, would you like to respond to what our sister Sanchea was saying? Okay, so I'm not sure if our brother Shemzu can still hear us. Shemzeru?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, so I was saying good. So and I have to say Duwawu Sanchea, that was so clear, that was so to the point, and we listened intently in the studio to you. Shemzeru, is there anything that you would like to say with you? So I want to leave the floor open to you, the youths, now to share your experiences with the listeners, or to share your thoughts with the listeners.
Okay. Well, I mean, for me, growing up in America, I grew up in a Christian household. English was my main language, obviously, and there wasn't really a necessity to really go outside of that. Like, I didn't begin to explore like into other different philosophies or other different religions or just spiritual practices until like I graduated high school. That's when really the exploration began, and from there I wanted as much as possible. Like, I knew Christianity wasn't it for me, because there was always that aspect there that I couldn't ask questions that I wanted to, and then when I was asking questions, my mom would tell me that all things will be revealed in due time, and stuff like that. So that never really sat with me. I needed more. There was always like, okay, well, what about this, or what about this, what about this? And eventually I found this book called Pistis Sophia. It's a Gnostic book that was talking about the early Christians, and it was talking about like how they had like a belief in many different gods and stuff like that. And that kind of brought me to like, well, if the early Christians are doing that, then why are we, doing this? Like, I think that this, like, being exposed to the Earth Center.
Hello?
Are you there, Shemzeru? Okay, so while we reconnect with our brother Shemzeru, Menshib, so you heard Shemzeru saying he grew in a Christian household, and but he was looking for something more. I mean, how did you come into initiation? Just tell it like it is, brother.
Well, I came into initiation from my mum. She was into it. She brought in me and my little brother. At first, me and my brother wasn't really into the whole thing. Obviously, I have a little brother. He's 14. He lives in Jamaica. But me and my brother used to go initiation every week, every Sunday. And yeah, we used to go every Sunday. And because we were young, we didn't really understand the whole concepts and everything, so we found it very boring. And we were kids, we always wanted to play, and we didn't really get anything from it. But now as I'm maturing, I'm getting older, I'm understanding, like, even the teachers, I remember the classes, even the teaching and everything is hitting me now. And it's a good thing because I'm only 17 and it's hitting me now. So imagine me in like 5 years' time, the amount of information I'll know.
So we're saying, can we just we're just making sure, because we've got so many people in the mic, we got it in the studio, there's a lot going on, so but we got the youths here and we're going through, we're on it. So what you were saying just now was that your mother forced you basically to go to initiation, and at the time when you went through initiation, you wasn't kind of getting it, you didn't really understand. But what you're saying, what's happened now? So how many years ago was it you came out of initiation? What's actually happening in your life now?
Well, I started initiation when I was like in year 7. Yeah, year 7, year 8. So that was like 5 years ago probably, and I graduated, initiated, I came out of it. There's a graduation where you do it, and then around 2 years time, you do a test, and they do a series of things to see if you're ready to be graduated. So me and my brother and my mum, a few, along with everyone else who graduated, we graduated in 2014. Like 2014, was it? 2014, 2016, around that. I was like 14 years old that time. And obviously I graduated, and when you graduate, you're going into like a new life now. But obviously I was 14, so I only graduated because I had to graduate, and then I went back to my normal self. But only now I'm seeing how powerful the teachers of Umtam is, and how much of an effect it has on my life now. So, and I'm seeing the change. Like, I'm growing spiritually. Like, me now compared to me 6 months ago was a big shift. I don't know what happened, but this time, like probably like in November, a few months ago, I don't know what, but something just changed. And like, I just saw things for what it is. That's the thing. We have to see things for what it is. So I saw that social media was one. There's just a big distraction. And I saw other things. And once you see it for what it is, then there's only one way forward. As you see the truth, so you only can grow. You can only get better once you see what it is.
I feel being initiative is just like, you know, building a foundation which you will gain in life for future reference, that could help you build. And like in today's society, that's only a good progress from building a foundation and being successful. I feel like later on during life, you gather spiritual healings that will set you forward, and you will gain only positive energy.
Yeah, me personally, so Shay. So me personally, I grew up in like a Christian background, and then it was only for like a little bit, and then obviously my mum stopped going to church, and I stopped going to church and stuff like that. And then obviously my nan's Catholic and everything. So I'm not gonna lie and sit here and lie. I think even now up to like this point, I'm still not sure as to where my path is gonna take me and stuff like that, and like what path I should take and stuff. I'm a bit like still confused, and I think in due time, with a bit of like guidance, I think I'll come to the right conclusion of how I like progress in life. So yeah, so I think with a bit of experience and time and guidance from the elders, I think it will help me a lot.
Yes, and that's it, you know, my brother. It takes time, you know, but the main thing is that it's there. For when the time comes for you to rock back on it, it's there. And that's why we have to give those traditions that held this knowledge for thousands of years in the bush, in secret, that now Nebnabala Musa Morondenibeg, high priest of the Dagomba temples, the Wasarian temples, brought it out into the West, that we here who are taken out of Africa, Merita, and are in the West can actually have access to the knowledge still. I think our brother Shems Heru has rejoined us. Ujayi, Shems Heru, are you there?
Ujayi, yeah, I'm here.
Okay, good. You were sharing with us before there was a disconnection?
Yeah. Basically I was saying the importance of the traditional aspect or traditional culture in my life now has just gave me a foundation that I can actually stand upon and be proud about. And even to have like questions. There's a quote that, you know, Master Nile said that the existence only reveals itself to your level of questioning. So it's like, instead of having that aspect of, oh, we can't answer your questions, or don't answer those questions, or just, you know, that Christianity has, or that I have had in my life growing up. You know, the Earth Center wants you to ask the questions. You know, the teachers want you to ask the questions. So this school has been something that I've always wanted. You know, this initiation has been something that has been necessary in my life, and I see all of the different ways of how. And even connecting, you know, back to my ancestors. My dad passed away in 2013, so having the ability to, you know, give offerings to him and, you know, to the rest of my family is just, you know, very powerful for me. So
condolences, my brother. But yes, that is a huge part within the tradition and within initiation, that we actually understand that, you know, the reincarnation, the birth and rebirth, and those that transition, that is a huge part of the initiation. My sister Sanchea, are you there still?
Yes, I'm here.
Please share with us your thoughts.
Yeah, so just kind of going off of that, the importance of questioning, and then what Manshib was saying about how when you see certain things, you can't really like go back from that. I think, you know, it was like the questions that kind of led me to this in the first place, and now doing it again. You start to really question like the way things go and look behind it, again, at the context, at the sequences that play into, you know, where we are right now in society, in our own lives. And, you know, looking at a lot of what's going on in society, it's kind of like you see that it's going in a certain direction, but then you're not really like questioning all the different parts of why it's going in that certain direction. So even like a lot of times, you know, like the kind of environments that I've been in, especially in college, like a lot of people, you know, see like the kind of problems we experience in society, but the tools that we're given to sort of try to affect change, it's all, you know, geared to be outside of us. It's all geared to be through the tools that they give us. You know, for example, if it's like protesting or if it's like speaking out about some issues, you don't really consider whether even what you're getting is coming from the same systems that uphold and create the problems in the first place. And you know that you can't really use the tools that are creating the problems to also resolve it. So to have now something that's coming from outside the system, something that's rooted in nature, you know, something that we're all a part of, not something that we're just sort of thinking that we are creating, that's really powerful. To even understand, you know, in this society and in our generation, I think one thing that's very much encouraged is to sort of craft your own identity and to create who you are as a person, but then without any sort of education as to what is a human being, you know, what is the nature of a human being, things like our limitations, like human beings can't create. You know, what else is a part of us, not just the material, but the immaterial, the ancestors. Really, on getting that education is so important, because otherwise, if we're all just crafting our own identities and we have just been a product of what we've been exposed to, then we really just become a product of, you know, the who educates us and the system that again gives us the tools to not even really investigate. So I think again that emphasis on questioning, to really critically think about, you know, where we are, or what are, you know, how are we moving, and to really look inside of yourself rather than just outside. You know, a lot of times you can talk about what's wrong with society, what's wrong that we see in the world, but we're never really taught or encouraged to actually look on the inside first, you know, see how we can clean our own house. So now getting the opportunity to have that, the resources, the support, you know, have this community across the country, across the world, to have people who are walking this path and, you know, getting that experience of communicating and sharing these stories is really, really amazing.
Alright, I'm just touching off on what my sister just said. I believe about the whole going inside yourself. I think that is underestimated, and we underestimate ourselves. I believe that we're all powerful and we can manifest whatever we want. I heavily believe in like the law of attraction, and it's true. Like even in the music today, it's all law of attraction. Like I remember this time last year, I listened to a song from a Joe rapper, and he was talking about 2019. He was rapping. He was a big rapper at the time. And he was talking about 2019 in his lyrics. He was talking about 2019. He wants to catch him a killing. Obviously, he's saying he wants to kill like his opposition. And then the other day, like a few months ago, he got locked up for a murder. And now he's in prison for 21 years. So it shows how powerful words are. And a practice I will do, what I do, and I think is beneficial, is that anything that you see yourself doing, write it down and write plans on how to manifest it, and it will come to pass. But how you do that is you have to strip off all the external things. Like you have to come off social media. When I say come off social media, I mean I don't mean come off entirely, because we all have two lives, we all have the life, but just like take breaks from social media. So one thing I do is come off social media. That's one thing, and clear your mind. So like forget all, if you're in school, like I'm in school, I'm in sixth form, forget all the exams, forget all the stress, forget everything, clear everything out of your mind. And once everything's clear, you're left with yourself, and that's where you can really vision and manifest what you want to do, because we're all gods. We can all do whatever we plan to do, but we just don't believe in ourselves. But that's what I wanted to say. You just have to go within.
Well, something I would say kind of in response to that, based on like some of the concepts that we've been learning, is that I think it's even important to look at things like the law of attraction very critically and question like even the history of that. Where is that coming from? Because one thing that we see again today in society is that like spirituality itself is being commodified and sold as, you know, something that now people are kind of flocking towards. But then again, where is that spirituality coming from? And a lot of like new age circles and like law of attraction, things like that, you know, really spreads like the message that as human beings, like we create like our reality. But I think that can actually be sort of dangerous, or kind of, you know, a little counter to what we learn in initiation, because in a way, like, you know, what you just talked about, you know, planning and then putting in a lot of hard work, you know, that's like a principle that we learn in the tradition, in the culture, that people work hard, you know, towards their goal. And if that goal is like spiritual growth and evolution and things like that, you know, you work hard, you fit in the way that, again, you have a history, you have like a role to play in, you know, in the existence. So it's sort of things that are coming from outside of us, really, that it's coming from nature, that we find ourselves having to learn and then fit into. But then, you know, again, like thinking that we sort of create like our own role, I think that can actually be sort of some of the concepts that are misleading people, because if, again, you know, it sort of takes that focus outside of the fact that we are like a very small part of something much bigger than us that imposes, you know, a certain principle, or a certain type of certain types of principles on us, if we're looking at survival, if we're looking at, you know, harmony and what that really means. So that was just some of my some thoughts I had on that.
Just leading off what my brother said about the killing and the crime and stuff, I just want to say, like, personally, like my experience, I've actually had friends that have died due to a knife crime, and I've actually been a witness to my friends getting stabbed. And you know, a lot of the youth are kind of scared to walk outside without protection, you know, and they feel kind of intimidated by other gangs and gang rivalry and stuff. So the only option they have is to carry a knife to protect themselves. And you know, they're only a product of their environment. So if they come from like a broken home, you know, their dad's in jail, their mum's on benefits and stuff like that, it can impact them like mentally. So they're only like surrounded by bad things. So when they go outside now, they look to someone to turn to because they have no one at home kind of leading them. So that people outside now, they're in gang activity and stuff, and then they feel accepted, they feel part of a family. So I feel like if our surroundings isn't strong, then you are easily led into a life of crime or a life of stuff like that, which is not good for you.
I also believe as well, sorry not to cut you, but like a lot of youths nowadays, it's like it's a lead to temptation with like a lot of drugs and alcohol. So what it is, it's like just to settle that down, just to balance it. It's not easy. Now, going by what the two, Shay and Mahif was saying, was saying is that it's a lot for the young youths today. And if there was like more youth centers out there and more like programs just to help the situation, that would be great. And I just want to leave it on a positive note that anything could happen, and like there's possibilities and opportunities for all the young youths out there today. So like I said, if there was more promotions or more youth centers, that would be great. That would be good.
Leading off what Corey said as well, I feel like I know it's a negative thing to say, but I feel like we're in too deep, like already into this thing with the youth and all that. So having youth centers, I don't think will really work, because their mindset is already fixed on what they're doing. And you see a lot of people going out in the street and giving out leaflets to say stop the knife crime and stuff like that, but I don't think it's working, because we've still got an increase in knife crime and the deaths and of young black people. So I feel like, I don't know, I think drastic measures need to be taken place. Like, I think it's all about, it all starts from home. So if you're a parent at home and you know that your son's going out late and stuff like that, like, you need to be more onto him about where he's going, what he's doing, stuff like that, because they're easily led and impressionable at a young age.
Yeah, it's just Shimseru. I see a lot of that, the impressionability of the youth, because I drive school buses, so I'm around elementary school kids all the time, and some of the stuff that they talk about is just violent. Like, I have one kid that always just the way he combats his anger, or the way he uses his anger, he always talks about ripping kids' heads off and fighting and shooting, all of the stuff he talks about. So I ask him occasionally, what do you do when you go home? And he tells me he plays Fortnite. So, I mean, the video games, the fact that the youth have what they're exposed to on a consistency isn't necessarily about, building spiritual development, but it's about, fighting and the violent things that we come in contact with. And it's just interesting because these are elementary school kids. They're talking, the way they talk is just like wow, we need to, just relax a little bit. But it's just a consistent thing, they handle their stress with anger, and if they get mad and it's not the way they want it, then they'll lash out, they'll scream, they'll kick the window, and they'll jump up and down, they'll do all this type of stuff. But it's just like, they just need people to pay attention to them. Like, I have many of the kids, if I miss 2 days of work, they're like, oh my gosh, Mr. Shimseru, where were you at, But they just need people to focus on them and to actually care and give them like a type of foundation that they can have, that's not uprooted in violence and destruction and whatever else we have on this society that we live in. That's my observation.
Yeah, well, I'm just sitting back, I actually didn't want to take the seat back, because it's good to let the youths flow and really hear what's going on. And it's deep, because the youths are looking at the younger youths, and what you're saying is, and I heard what Shay just said, is that, the leaflet thing's not gonna work. The man them gone further than that now. They're viler than that. Let's keep it real. The man them get vile. The mindset is dread out there. everyone is having to look. I'm talking here in the UK. I'm not sure in Baltimore, and is it Jersey? I'm not sure what it is, but certainly here on the streets of London, it's dread. And then listen to what Shems Heru is saying in terms of what the younger youths, how that it means it's already infected the youths. So my question to these youths here is, how do you see us getting to the youths and actually getting to their hearts and minds, so that the message that we have can actually take root in them and begin to grow? How do you see any way that we can do that?
I think that, well, I know that more youths need to step up with the information, like, and that's a benefit, because if a youth is given the same information what the adults would be given, the youths can relate to another youth, especially if they live in the same area, for example. So, because youths, they can't relate to adults, like, even though they could be entirely correct, because obviously we all know the streets, even they know the streets isn't good for you, but if an adult's giving it to you, what do they know? That they don't know what we're going through. So if a youth is given the same thing, they can be seen as a positive role model, and they could influence the majority, because it is the majority that's getting influence with this, not just with gangs, but different. The gangs are just one aspect, but there's different other things that, you know. So I think more youth need to step up and explain and share their emotions and what's going on.
Well, leading off that, I would like to say, I feel like as a group, if you're a youth and you're in a group of friends that you usually hang around with, like doing gang activity, you're not gonna, like, even if let's say you get someone in to talk about how they've had experiences and how they've changed and how they turned their life around. If you're around a group of friends, you're not gonna really take it in, because you're just gonna think, oh yeah, just brush it off, this, that, he's just talking. But I think if you pull them apart individually, I think it'll work, because they have time to reflect on their own, and they say, listen, my friends are not here right now, why am I acting like this, stuff like that, where's it gone wrong? But as a group, I think that they just feel like no one can tell them anything. But individually, I think it will work. It will get to them more.
Okay, so that's so important what you're telling us. The first thing is this group mentality. We need to get the youths one-on-one, and we need to train up youths, get youths in initiation who begin to understand. That's why we're glad we have people like Sanchea, Shems Heru, Menshib, and others who are, Sebasti's one as well, and I'm sure there are many others, because what you're saying is that the youths relate to youth. So the key part in the traditions is making sure that our youths get this. Shay, your mother is giving it to you, and your father is sitting here right here, and he may want to share some of his wisdom with you whilst he's here anyway. But you know, you're very clued up. Actually, you were the reason why I really wanted to do this show with the youths. When I heard you speak on the Father's Day, I was so impressed. You just said a line or two, but you had the whole room of adults silent. And it made me understand that actually we need to look at this from the eyes of the youth if we're really going to understand, because we're not facing what you're facing. And then for us to be able to assist you in your future, we need to understand how best do we get this message to the youth. Now, one of the things that they said is like putting it on social media, and you actually mentioned that as well, getting it out on social media. But do you think that with the Earth Center and with other conscious ones putting information across on the social media, do you think that those youths may just come across it and look into it, or they're not even going to pay attention to it?
I think if obviously a person at my age, and you're saying gang activity, right? Yeah, so a person of my age that's doing gang activity and they want to change, I feel like they're not gonna use their initiative to go out there and look for something to change them. I think if you go to them, then they have no way out of it. Like, I'm not saying go to them on the street, because they can always just walk past and say I'm not interested, or they can either listen and not take it in. But I feel like if you use their own time, so you go to like schools and stuff, because there's a lot of people that are in gangs that still go to school, so if you go to where they are, they can't avoid it, and then something will kick in. If you're talking to them, they can't ignore it.
Okay.
If it clicks, yeah.
So that may be something that the Earth Centre needs to look at. Actually going into the schools and organisations and getting to the youths in that way. Sanchaya Shemteru, what's your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think that it would actually be very beneficial to maybe use social media as like a vehicle to just put some seeds out there. You know, what Menchie was saying earlier about social media, I've noticed that in my life too, having to really look at what how I'm using it. But it's powerful too. It's like there's two sides to it, because it's powerful because of the reach that it has. So for the Earth Center or for people in initiation to kind of use that as a platform and even spread, just some of the proverbs or some of the ideas and concepts, even if someone doesn't pursue it, it's still something they've been exposed to now, something that's different than, the rest of whatever is being kind of funneled in there, to reach people. So I think it's something to be looked at. And I think in general too, it really does start like person to person. It starts like family to family. So I think what's really important is that all the people who have been exposed to something like this to really lead by example and to really live these principles in your life every day. And that's a struggle. That's something that comes with time and a lot of patience and continued effort to really live the way that you're learning. But I think living that way, when people meet you, all the people you come across, you're standing on something, you're carrying something. So then for whoever you come across, especially kids, who other youth, other people in your own kind of generation who you meet, that's something that they can't deny. If you're leading by example, if this is the way that you're living, that'll show up in the way that you move. So I think continuing to really hold that at heart and working on myself as like a person that I can, that I do take out into the world, and see how even just that, keeping that as the root, and then being of service, planting seeds wherever I can. I think that's another way to sort of make some strides with what we're facing right now.
Wow.
Also, I like to say, like, you see how I think if you to really connect to like the younger youth of today, I feel like if you do something they enjoy, it will help more. So I was thinking just now, like, let's say you take them out on a trip, like somewhere you do activities and stuff like that, but not just like any activities. Like, I mean, like if you just like you go to like areas where there's gang related and stuff, and then you really get youngers to talk to them, but you not only just talk, you provide the opportunity to go out on a trip, and then you get people from all areas, and they come together, and that way you can really like stop the violence and then stop the rivalry, because they become friends and they build bonds and stuff like that. Because when you take away the knife, when you take away the social media, and you're just away, you're just left with your young black people, and there's nothing really to fight over there. So.
That's right. And of course, I mean, the Earth Center can also work with other organizations on the ground who are out there, so because this is a community effort, so because we have organizations working with the youth, but we can work alongside to work with, and I know here certainly in the UK we're looking to work a lot more with the community, and that is really important. Was you gonna say something else, Shay? Yes, yeah, please, as much as you want.
So like as well as for the elders as well, like I'm talking like 18 and that. I think if we can like provide like jobs or like maybe something to do to get them off the streets, because a lot of them they can't get jobs, they didn't get the grades or GCSEs, so they're not going to walk into a job and they're going to be accepted, so if we provide a platform for them to work or to do something to get them off the streets, I think they'll be more compliant, I think.
Okay, and you know, those within the Western world, under the field of psychology, they have a Maslow's law, which looks at the basic human needs, and one of them is for food, shelter, you know, water, that kind of thing. But of course, being able to provide for yourself is very important. Not only is important in terms of you as a person, but when you grow up into a man, your woman is looking to you, your children are looking to you. What does that do to you as a man if you can't provide for your family? So they become huge issues as the child begins to grow. So these are social issues, and we know, so at the beginning of the show I kind of try to give an overview of the context in which we're operating, because we are operating under a superpower that does not look like us, that the system wasn't designed for us. So we're caught in a matrix that wasn't designed for our betterment, so we have to deal with that. But one thing Sanchea did say was that at the end of the day we still have to focus on ourselves. How can we build ourselves? So I know there's a brother in the studio who wanted to ask the youths a question. So please feel free, my brother.
Greetings. Yeah. First of all, I'd like to say respect to the man them. It's like...
And the sister. She's on the phone. Sister Sanchea. She's not... And the sister and the Senti.
The sister and the brethren on the phone, I give thanks for your contribution, but where we are now, I just respect to the man them, because there ain't easy. It's not easy. So for you to come this far, it shows why. It makes me feel proud, you know. So I have a question for you, because my journey in life, sometimes you go to church or whatever, they say, this is this, and you have to make a decision, and whatever you see there, you say, that's why I joined that thing. Yeah, so question I'm asking you is like, if you had one chance to save a roadman with what you've learned, because enough of you got brethren out there and they don't know the truth, sometimes you might get that one chance to say something to them. I ask you all to just say what you would say if you had that chance, because where you are now is where enough of them need to be. But Babylon have them in a spell, and I wrap them and I twist them up with them technology to take with them own knowledge of self. So if you had one chance to say something to save a roadman from what you've learned, what would it be?
Stay strong and give thanks.
Okay, stay strong and give thanks.
Yeah, I mean, like from the teachings of the Dogon teachings. I mean, like what you've learned.
Well, this young man,
he's
they haven't come in. Yeah, he's a soldier. Same way.
So, we'll just keep it simple then. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Let's
what would you say if you had one chance?
I'll say that like they're more powerful than what they think. That's one of the things I'll say to them, because. And also, I would want them to know, I would want them to love each other, because we're all black people we shouldn't be fighting against each other. That's the whole agenda. We're all built to hate each other, and that's not the way. Because imagine if knife crime and all this crime stopped, like the police wouldn't be empowered. There wouldn't be no such thing as police. So they need knife crime and everything to keep jobs and everything. So I'll just say to love each other, and we're all powerful. That's what I would want them to know.
Yeah. I think I'll just relate it back to their parents and stuff. Like I'll just say, like, you know, your dad. Let's say for your dad, for example, as a male, you wouldn't like him to see him like going out in the street and then, you know, robbing people, you know, stabbing up people and stuff. So what makes it right for you to do it? I know that some of them do have a rough past and they have no choice, but there's always a way out, I think, and there's always the opportunities around them, but they just choose not to look. They choose to like turn the other way, and then because they want to indulge more in the life of crime, and then, you know, some of it as well is because they're making easy money, and, you know, I can understand easy money comes easy, but it can also go easy as well.
That's right.
So you make
smart young man.
Yeah. So if you have like, let's say, you know, you're selling drugs and stuff like that, them drugs there that you're selling can easily be taken off you and then, you know, sold to someone else, and then they can also kill you for it and you'll hurt you. So. Like what comes easy can go easy, so yeah.
Yes. We're going to come to you. We're going to come to the father and maybe the mother of the son as well, because you said something about, so you said something about the parents, and it's so important because, it is so key that the parents are there. But as you said, many youths don't have their parents there, and that is a huge issue. The question that, I don't know if you heard the brother in the studio, so this is to Shems Heru and Sanchea. If you had a chance to save one youth out there, over here we call them the roadman, them over there you may call them something else, but save a youth, what would you say to them, Sanchea?
So this is this is a hard one, but I would say that to look to really where you come from, what's your history, and really encourage them to look into that. What are their roots? What is the momentum, like the river flowing behind them? Really encourage them to look into that, to sort of see that there's a history to everything and even them, and that it's a lot bigger than, what they're facing right now in their life, and that to really move forward, you have to look back first and see what you can learn from that, where you actually come from. And, hopefully that could give some guidance.
Wow. Shems Heru?
Yeah. Like Sanchea said, this is kind of difficult. I was trying to think of an answer, while everybody was giving theirs, but I think that I would say if the action in what you're about to do, and if father was there, would they be proud of it? Doing something that you do was something that your mother would be disappointed in. Would you still continue to do it then? And I think that once we look at it like, oh, if I do this, would I make my mother proud, or if I do this, would I, cause shame to my father, cause shame to my parents? Then we can really begin to see, maybe I shouldn't do that actually.
Okay.
Yes, Shay.
So leading off what you just said, I feel like I said leading off what you just said, I feel like if you was to tell them so say if he's about to hurt somebody or maybe even kill them, I would say, like, if you think about the consequences after that, you're gonna go jail for what, a postcode that you don't even own, like you just live in. So it's not worth it. Like, your life is more important and your freedom is more important than your friends and stuff like that, because a lot of people out there will actually kill for their friends, and it's wrong because they're two separate people. They both have individual sense of freedom, so losing that can be like you're just putting yourself back into the system, and then there's no way to get out of it. They tell you when to go sleep, when to go toilet, stuff like that. There's no way out. Once you're in there, you can't come out. You have to serve your time, and a lot of them do regret it after that, but they still have to keep their pride and they keep their head up, in prison. But
and that's so important, this false sense of pride, because there's no pride in that. That's the thing. You've taken someone's life, there's no pride in it, but the pride that they've found amongst this family that they think they've found, and actually the same friend who they may have killed for, they go into jail and that friend doesn't even come and look for them.
They just put up posters saying, oh, free my guy, this, that, or the t-shirts and stuff like that. But it doesn't really matter, because at the end of the day, you're the one that's locked up, and they're earning their money, easy money, and they're still risking their freedom.
Thank you for that. Now we have our brother Shay's father in the house. So since you've been you've brought his father and mother, you've brought them down, we'd like to hear you brought them to the studio, so we'd like to hear a bit from yourself, and then we'll hear from you, Teresa.
Okay.
Ujai. You just tell us your name. You don't have to tell us your age if you don't want to.
All right, Ujai. My name's Tony. Shay's father. I'm here with his mother, Teresa. Greetings to the brother and sister in America, and to fellow brethren in the house here at the moment. It's amazing, what comes out when you give the youth a chance. In reverse, I'll quickly say the engineer asked one question in about 5 minutes ago, and it was, if you had one thing to say to the youths, male or female, what would it be? Me personally, before I go into my background, I would say check out to the youths, check out these teachings, this philosophy that is being broadcasted. Trust me, if you're looking for something out of life, you need a foundation of self. You need to know certain things before you make certain choices. And descendant of diasporians from the Caribbean, everything I was taught by my mother, from the school teachers, the media, TV. I'm way past the youth's age at the moment, so I'm in my 50s. Everything shaped my thoughts, my choices, the food I eat, the clothes I wear, my whole sense of reality of being a human being, up until maybe 3 years ago. I started questioning. I was one of them people that relied on my conscience to make the right choices. And I wasn't sort of visually a bad person. You would never know what I'm up to. But I'm coming from dark places. What I would say is question what you've been told. You could read, for me it was the Bible, and for a long time, out of the little crew I used to move with, I mean, we were Rasta and so forth. That's where I'm coming from. My choice was to become a Rasta, or to overstand it, to try and uphold it. And I went against the grain of the norm. I decided I was going to take this thing on. And for many years I walked with it. And it, I was really dedicated to it. In a sense, I wouldn't say I was perfect, but there come a point where a book gave me a choice, and it was called Two Faces of Hell. And it just said in the story, if this was to happen, and it questioned my foundation. And then, because I faced reality, again, life's a journey. You take, it's straight, but there's bumps and there's hills and all of that. But it's your choices, your admittance to yourself of what you've been told for many years, and making that step to say, you know what, I was following. You've been told to live and exist a certain way from your mother's time. So if my mother's been told the wrong thing, she's told me the wrong thing, and so on and so on. Somewhere along the line, as an individual, you're responsible for your choices. And if it means going against your friends and your family, I'm coming from the reggae side of things. There's one particular music, Since I Threw the Comb Away. It's a famous singer, Twinkle Brothers, Norman Grant. And so once upon a time, he was the favorite child of the family. He was everything, but he made a choice, and everybody turned against him. This is the road. So it's the same for your friends, how they walk, how they talk, how they dress, how they communicate. Underline that word, communicate, because it leads to all different things. So, it's various things, but it's choices. And the choices we make, we've got to live with sometimes. We've got young people locked up. They made the wrong choices. But even there and now, locked up, all they have to do is hear the right thing. The commandments that the organization MTAM talks about, wow. That's perfection unto perfection. If you can make it happen, you can implement those things like you're a baby once again and redefine who you are and how you exist, not being told how to exist, and existing from what you know and feel within. Everybody's got a voice. Bob Marley said it. If you listen to it, you've got that voice. It's just, it's not what you want to hear maybe, it's not the norm, but you are the individual, and it's your accounts that are going to be added up and put in a scale and weighed against a feather. Yes, I said a feather, a bird's feather. My understanding of my existence is broadened for the last year because my other half, Teresa, goes and becoming an initiate. Over time it will happen, but the little that I've taken time to hear and assess, trust me, it's like finding a gold nugget. But that's my experience. So yeah, youths, check it out, because I've been around the town a little and I've not heard nothing as clear, and you can't really argue against it. Not that you should, because like anything, listen, just hear it out, be open-minded to it, just like you was open-minded to the garage music or whatever. Give it a chance, because it's clean, it's coming from the original source, and I'm dedicated to the truth, and the truth will set you free. So my brothers and sisters, young and old, don't matter what age you are, where you're coming from, what you've done, what you've said, it's your time now, today. Don't leave it to get worse and worse. Just, if you want better, seek it. Alright, so the youths them, live up, do unto others, simple things. Alright, bless.
Well, and we will be giving out the number of the Earth Center. We can ask Teresa. You're listening to Bless Radio. Bless Radio, we want to thank them for giving us this platform and the opportunity at this time to share the message. Yes, Teresa, we would love to hear from you. Ujayi, my sister.
Ujayi, and I want to say to the gentlemen that's in the studio, so we have my son Menshi and my nephew Corey. And I'm glad that this is spoke about the youths of today and what they are facing, because when I was growing up, we was growing up under discipline, and we had culture, and we lived by principles, and we had that space where we can find our own identity, you know, through our own music, as mentioned earlier. Even if we were sent to church, you know, it was still, there was still a culture there. But now, what the youths are going through today, it is so sad to see it, because, you know, us as mothers, fathers, parents, it is hard. It is hard to reel the children in, and to let them know that there's another side to what the youths are living out there. And all they're thinking now is, I mean, you get the youths that who, you know, hasn't got both parents living with them. So this is where it all starts. You know, it starts where the system has taken taken away that rights as parents to grow our children. So this is where it starts. And you see, so what happens now is, because the family's broken, so the children, even if the children had parents who support them very well, they still have to be part of what's going on out there, because it's peer pressure. So, I mean, the difference is what we've grown up with, you know, it is totally different from what you lot are going through. And so MTOM is, I wish we had this when we was growing up.
Definitely.
Because this is a foundation, not only for elders, but it's a foundation for the youths. And it's the only thing out there. There's nothing else that, that can, is a base for the youths to, be initiated in, because our rights as initiates, when you in Merita, you have the initiations, and here we don't have that. So this is where the children are like, the youths are wondering, because they're wondering because they don't know their passage, they don't know their purpose, and the only thing they do have is what the system is offering them. So, I mean, what I'm in now with the MTAM, what I'm learning, I wish I had this when I was your age, because then, but you're never too old, as they say, but, so I do see the difference with my younger son and my elder son. So with my elder son, I fought for where he is now. Because you see the danger, and if you don't grab the youths in now, as parents, as a mother, you'll lose them. You'll lose them to the system.
That's right.
So I'm just glad that I have the mentality that I do have, and I'm able to, put it into my two sons that I have. So I've dealt with one son, and he's doing well. He's doing fine, and that's my younger son here, that I have to fight even twice as hard because of what he's friends that, like, if it's not his immediate friends, he's a friend of a friend that's in gangs. So you're fighting as a parent, you're fighting the system, and you're fighting you're fighting for your child, to have that better life. But I'm glad I'm at MTAM, because MTAM's giving me the tools that I can put into my sons, and and the tools that they'll be able to use it for their children. So it is hard out there, but
well, Duawo, because we know the work as a parent. We know what and especially with the young boys in these inner city areas, it's not simple. But I just want to round up with our brother and sister on the line, Shem Heru and Sanchea. I hope you heard that. So we've gone over time, but we had technical issues, and it's key that we get the youth to speak. Well, like I said, I want to give thanks to Bless for allowing us this platform, that we give the youths a time to express themselves, because it's only through communication that we can really get on the same page and really be effective with our children. So our brother Shems Heru, is there any last words you would like to share with the listeners, with us in the studio?
Yes. So MTAM is a powerful school. The initiation, it offers 3 courses: the language and the philosophy, the Katibi, which translates to meditation, and the Ninsung, traditional healing. Just, if you're thinking about coming, just come sit in the class to your nearest Earth Center. Talk to any of the initiates about the school, about what what the school has to offer. Check out any of the periodicals that we do have, because it has a lot of information too, and a lot of different written articles by initiates, by the teacher, by different teachers, and even by Master Napa. So if you're on the fence, you're like, I'm not sure yet, I think you should just come check out, because even the fact that you're on the fence, you're thinking about it, means there's something inside of you that's pushing you to that point. That's like, you should go check it out. So don't deny that, and just take that step, because it's a really powerful school. Yeah, that's what I had to say.
Oh, duawu for that, Shems Heru. And I really want to say, duawu for being on the show this evening, sharing with us your experience, your knowledge, and just dua, because it's important, as was identified earlier, that it's the youths that are gonna, the other youths are gonna relate to. So it's so important we have persons like yourself who have gone through or are going through or have gone through per Ankh, and really now hold that knowledge so that you can pass it on to the next generation. And in fact, it looks like the ancestors have placed you right there in the middle of a school bus driving the children.
Right. Interesting, right?
They've placed you right in the middle of them. So my brother, do your work. Yeah.
For sure.
So Duawu Isa for being on the Wisdom of the Nile show this evening, and we do look forward to speaking with you again in the future.
Yes, I'm here.
Duawu. And Irihuru. Iriheru, Duawu. And my sister Sanchea, can we have some parting words from yourself?
Sure. So first, I just wanted to say duao to all of you for, giving us the opportunity to talk and sort of give our perspective. And, even for me to listen to this, it's been very inspiring to hear, again, like young people all around the world sort of embracing this, and that we can be sort of spearheading this even for our generation. But what I'd want to say, and I thought a lot more about that other question that was asked, and what I'd really want to say to the youth who need to hear it. I think one of the most empowering things that I've learned through this education is that you write your own history. You can always write your own history, and that's in your hands. The way that you live, the way that your actions, the way that you move, the way that you speak and think, that's in your hands, and it's sort of on you to also make sure that, you're not letting anyone else, you're not letting the system sort of write that history for you, write you in their version of how they want things to be. So I think, again, like Shamsaru was saying, like getting this education, if someone is, questioning, seeking this, I would definitely encourage it. And I'd say that, again, getting the true opportunity to really write our own histories, no matter, again, like what has already happened, it's like from this point on, we really have something that we can hold now and run with it. So that's what I would say, and duao again for everything.
Duao, it has been a blessing and a pleasure to have both yourself and Shems Heru on the Wisdom of the Nile show, and we do look forward to you returning onto the show, and hopefully by that time you'll have your name, so we will know who the earth knows you to be. So we really look forward for that.
Yes, me too. We'll make sure that I get there.
Okay. Duao Isa for sharing your perspective with us this evening, and like I said, we look forward to speaking with you again in the future.
Okay. Iriheru.
Duao Iriheru. Yes, so we are over time, but we are on time, because we have been sharing with you inside the minds of the youths. We have been sharing the wisdom of the knowledge from the ancestors, which is brought to you by the Earth Center. Now, you can, for those who, because obviously the show is aired and it will go across the world. So for those who want to know more about the Earth Center, you can go on to www.theearthcenter.org, and there you can find information on basically everything that's happening across the Earth Center. If you want to just be a member, because there are many ways that you can be affiliated with, or have a connection to the Earth Center. Suppose you're not ready yet for initiation, you can actually join and be a member, and it would mean that you're an allied member. There's a small fee for that. You can go on the website and you can have a look, and that will give you information about what we do across the different sections of the Earth Center. So Project in Merita, which runs projects down in Merita, has land down there, deals with the local community down there, has a healing center, upkeeps the temples for those who are desirous to return. That's a project in Merita. The Firefly, as our brother Shems Heru mentioned, that we have the Podium, which was written by Neb Naba, Lamusa Modern Denebeg, and also his son Irita Shenmira, who was my teacher, who came to the UK and after his father transitioned came to the UK and set up the school here in the UK, also Canada. And there's also a school in Burkina Faso. There were schools throughout the US. So he was also part of the Podium, writing the Podium, bringing forward the Podium, as well as other initiates. The Initiatic Tales. We have the Firefly magazine. We have the Book of Purification for those who want to know more about how do you purify yourself before we go into what we call Zemzem or prayers. There are those books. We have the 77, which we spoke about, which is the code of human behavior. What are the basic things that human does in terms of right and wrong? We have the calendar, because we do not go by the sun time, the Gregorian calendar. It's actually by the Sothis or the Sirius star. This is the calendar that was used in ancient Kemet. So there is so much that you can find out through the Firefly, and of course there's the Umtam school for those who want to go through initiation. So there are many ways that you can get information from the school and know more about the school. Now, for us here in the UK, we've just had orientation. Orientation is where people who want to know about, who want to come into initiation, the doors have just been opened, and they are open for 2 more weeks. So if you would like to know more about initiation, you can come to the school this Sunday. So there will be initiates coming to the school this Sunday who want to start initiation. After 2 weeks, those doors close, because actually by the 3rd week, the depth and of the knowledge that you're getting by the 3rd week, you're going to find it very hard to catch up, because the classes then just take off on another level. So Sunday will be the first set of classes at the school. So for the next 2 weeks, those doors for initiation will be open. So if you are interested, you can contact us at the London school, which is 0208 558 3678. That's 0208 558 3678. You can actually go on, like we said, the main website, which is www.theearthcenter.org. There's also going to be an orientation in Coventry in the north, because we have a school here in Coventry as well, and I believe that's the 7th of March. So if you're in the north of England and you would like to go into initiation, there is the orientation happening there. But in fact, orientation is happening and has been happening across the globe. So again, if you want to know more about the Earth Center, do visit our website. Our address for the London school is 21 Sunnyside Road, Leighton, London, E10 7BB. Now we also have a talk coming up at the school on the Saturday the 29th of February 2020, and it's on motherhood, divine feminine. And we've heard today from the youths how important it is to have the parents. So motherhood and the feminine from a traditional perspective. If you want to know more about that, again, you can come to the school Saturday the 29th of February 2020. It's 6:30 to 8:30. Entry is £7 at the door, and that includes some light refreshment. I think I'm going to finish there for tonight, but we would like our young guest to actually have the last word. So if any of you want to share some words with the listeners before we leave them tonight. So I've been Kasata Fakara. We have been in the minds of the youths, and we are looking at the position of the traditions in the world today amongst our youth. So we would like any of you to just say a few words to the listeners before we close out tonight. So it's not a question. Is there anything you would like to share? Any last words you would like to share with our listeners before we close off tonight? Because this show was about the youth, so we're giving the youths a chance to seal up.
Yeah, so just for like the youth's sake, I think if you can feel yourself kind of relating to what like the show is about today, then I think you should just take it on board, even if you don't like fully take action. At least it's in your head now, and you have like you're subconsciously thinking about it. So next time like you do any actions that you know is wrong, just think about this and try and make the right actions to get yourself on the right path.
Okay, Dwell, and you know where to come. Like I said, we're at the Earth Centre, and www.theearthcentre.org if you want to know more about us. So wherever you are in the world, you can go on there and you can find all the schools and anything you need to know. Our brother Menshi, would you like to give some closing words?
It was a pleasure being on the show, and what I want to end with is that we are all powerful. All we have to do is go within and we can change the world. So don't give up on yourself and let's go. We got this. So we're all powerful. We can change the world. That's the last thing I want to say.
My word is to stay positive and to always reach high and to reach your goals. And eventually all the goodness and happiness that you bring to your life will come. It just takes time and dedication. Yeah.
I'm a devil on the battlefield. I'm a rebel with a cause. Observe the laws of my heart. I am a liberal opposer, practitioner of yoga, position of the Torah, tradition of the Shona. Trace back my lineage to inner Ethiopia. Down in a Kemet, me build the pyramid of Joseph. Hieroglyphics, them I call that Medonecha. When me see the sun arise in the sky, me call it Kepa. I praise of the leper, with praises Antonetta. Them come here with them cross, but me said the ank is better. Eh? When I was in a beretta, rise up, figure take a life out, just sip the better life of. Eh? None of the pressure, make sure exercise up. And be careful of the one we teach Jesus Christ up. On the battlefield, I'm a rebel with a cause, never pass. Babylon a devil on the battlefield. I'm a rebel with a cause. Observe the laws with no flaws. Haile Selassie are the leader, they on the battlefield. Yeah. Humble as a lamb, me just follow the procedure. Rastaman a healer, beast get trample on the heel. Yeah. Me bust up every seal where them seal. Yeah. Read a couple chapter, then reflect upon the fact of them. Focus on the acronym, open up my chakra them. Seated in the lotus, me a soak up all the oxygen. Kemetic yoga, me bring over from the continent. Africa, that's where we wanna be. We living in a poverty, cause of the economy. Capitalistic and the materiality. We no see reality, only periodically. On the battlefield, I'm a rebel with a cause, never pass. Babylon a devil on the battlefield. I'm a rebel with a cause. Observe the laws with no flaws. On the battlefield, I'm a rebel with a cause, never pass. Send me on a rebel on the battlefield. I'm a rebel with a cause. Observe the laws with no flaws. I am a liberal opposer, practitioner of yoga, position of the Torah, tradition of the Shona. Chase back my lineage to inner Ethiopia. Down in a Kemet, me build the pyramid of Joseph. Hieroglyphics, me call that Medonecha. When me see the sun arise in the sky, me call it Kepa. I peace of the leper, with praises Antonetta. Them come here with them cross, but me said the ank is better. On the battlefield, I'm a rebel with a cause, never pass. Babylon a devil on the battlefield. I'm a rebel with a cause. Observe the laws of my heart. Haile Selassie are the leader, they on the battlefield. Humble as a lamb, me just follow the procedure. Rastaman a healer, beast get trampled on the heel. Me bust up every seal with them sealers. Read a couple chapter, then reflect upon the fact of them. Focus on the acronym, open up my chakra them. Seated in the lotus, I just soak up all the oxygen. Kemetic yoga, bring over from the continent. Africa, that's where we wanna be. We living in a poverty cause of the economy. Capitalistic and the materiality. We no see reality, only periodically. On the battlefield, I'm a rebel with a cause, never pause. Babylon a devil on the battlefield. I'm a rebel with a cause. Observe the laws with no flaws. On the battlefield, I'm a rebel with a cause, never pause. Say me on a rebel on the battlefield. I'm a rebel with a cause. Observe the laws with no flaws. No, don't you fight us down, yeah. Don't you fight us down. Don't you fight us down. Them the ones who will sit on the throne. Burning fire, you know. You must show them say yeah, we're up on the battlefield. Only the righteous warriors can see the victory, you know. And the Selassie I lead the way, you know. Empress Menenai. No. Yeah, a green lion now.
In the memory of the beloved prophet Nebnabala Musa Mordinabig, the doggone priest, Maher, the truth teller, Bisina Basa, which means I'll be appreciated after I'm gone. He's the man who overcome the devils with love. He's the man who speaks because he has something to say. The man of wisdom, the definition of humanity. Maher, far away, I'm from far away, far away, from far away, West Africa, from far away, Prophet Naba, far away, La Musa, far away, far away, Prophet, from far away, Prophet Naba, far away, from far away. By faith, and not by fear. His greatest wealth is the richness of his soul. He's the man who lives by faith and not by fear. He's the double-edged sword. He's the double-edged sword. He's the key to unlock their treachery. Truth and you shall find him. He's the definition of humanity. He's the beginning and the end. He's the prophet never far away. I'm from far away, far away, from far away, West Africa, from far away, prophet never far away, La Musa, far away, far away, prophet from far away, prophet never far away, from far away, from far away, prophet from far away. Bob Marley says, emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. Have no fear for atomic energy, cause none of them can stop the time. How long shall they kill our prophet while we stand aside and look? Some say it's just a part of it. We gotta fulfill it. Come to Maheru, come to Maheru, come to Maheru, come to Maheru, come to Maheru. He got your own told story. I'm from far away.